Peace. As-Salaamu Alaikum. What's going on, y'all? It's your man, Soul Man IT, and we back here on the channel, Intro Muslim. This episode, we're going to be talking about Salat, prayer, right? I've chosen to separate this out into two parts, right? Basically, the first part, we're going to cover requisites before making prayer. What does the purified state mean? Like wudu, ghusl, tayammum, call to prayer, the adhan, and the iqamat. And then there's going to be like this, the last part is where there's the breakdown of where it's like the Part.1 aspect when it comes to performing prayer. Because I think that deserves to be split into two videos. And you'll see why. Because it can be pretty dense. And to some degree, that in itself can be intimidating when the objective that you want to have is overall to be able to perform prayer. And I want to start there, right? Just saying that performing prayer, it's not like performing a dance routine of any kind, any level, right? But you do have to take it as serious because it is a motion and movement of bodies for a intentional and specific and sacred mean, right? So in that respect, it is like dancing. It is like being on a stage. The stage in this case is your prayer mat, right? And you are going to perform, but your only audience, more so you are in audience of Allah, right? So if you look at it within that context, it kind of takes, or it should hopefully take away the egoism, I guess, of performing prayer, especially here in the West, because of the context in which we hear the word performing. I guess maybe another way of saying it would probably be a intentional demonstration or exhibition of prayer, right? But who says something like that now? That's why it's, kind of like why you have to use performing. And this is why it is kind of confusing and intimidating because of the translation and nuance of translating these words, especially when you're going in reverse from Arabic or even another language for real that's just not English to English to try to get that nuance. I know for some of you, it may feel like I'm going overboard and too far in depth to just simply, talk about prayer. You could just be like,
it's just the four requisites and then show the rakats.
I don't think it's going to be helpful if there's those who are struggling with that, right? So that's all. Before we get to it, I needed a little help in breaking this down. So I had to go back to my old school library, right? And go back to one of the books I was reading when I first came up, which is Elementary Teachings of Islam by Moulana Abdul-Aleem Siddiqui, right? And this joint here is distributed by Darul Kitab al-Islami out of Burlington, New Jersey. This book right here, this really helped a lot coming up, especially with how read our parents were trying to make us from our generation. I was born in 87, so I come on the tail end of the 80s and 90s babies, where our teenage years happened at the start of the new millennium, the 2000s, right? Saying that because basically the way this is written is, it's not Old English, which is very helpful, but it does use some Old English terms. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, because sometimes when you're reading scripture, the wording itself can get you tripped up and then you don't even know what it is you read. So in this, I'm going to be coming from this, right? So on page 33, chapter 11, right? So we're going to get started here. You have your requisites before making prayer, right? So I'm just going to read along with the dialogue. So it has it in a question and a format, which is also kind of helpful too. And if there's any questions that you do have, make sure to just leave them down below, and Insha'Allah, we can be able to answer those. All right, so let's get to it. First here, we have, it's in Q&A format, right? So we have, what is the second principle of Islam? The second principle of Islam is to offer the obligatory prayers 5 times a day, Salat, right? And what do you understand by prayer? What do you mean by prayer? Prayer is the act of worshiping Allah according to the teachings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him. So here we have some essential requisites, right? Before we can offer our prayer. And this can come off as like intimidating because it might seem like a big old list of things that you have to do. But let's break them down here, right? So some of these requisites here can like make sense while you're reading them. Some of them might need a little bit more of a breakdown for you to understand. So let's start here. The first requisite, got to be Muslim. Makes sense. Check, right? Our clothes and body must be free from all impurities, right? So if you look here, you want to wear your best clothing. You're going to meet Allah essentially for the purpose of prayer at this specific place, right? I'm not saying that in the context of Allah is only there and he's not all present. That's not what I'm saying. Please don't take it as that. But I am saying you want to treat it as that. You're going to present yourself to the Most High, right? So in the same way that when you go to meet someone in your day-to-day life, you want to look your most presentable, your most flyest, right? So in this sense, Allah don't really care about you being fly. What he do care about is you being pure, and especially of soul, pure of heart, pure of intention, pure from purity from that perspective, right? Also, you may not have access to the clothes that everybody has. It's expensive to dress like this all the time in this country, right? So we're learning about a culture, and we're adopting a culture that has ways that when we try to apply it to our everyday lifestyle, right, in the general sense. So when you see how most Muslims dress, they usually wear garbs that extend past their waist, both men and women, right? They usually have a head covering of some sort. You see the women have their head covered, the men have their head covered. There's a certain aspect of this for modesty, but also as a culture to distinguish yourself from the other cultures on the planet, right? I'm saying that because if you've converted into Islam, for instance, or let's say you were young like me and you were born into this, you're both at the same door and you're both watching Islam. And so there are many types of Muslims on the planet, many types of cultures, many languages spoken, and the common language that we have, because you have to have a common language if you got all these different types of people speaking, right? That we all learn, and that makes sense, right? We have the Arabic, right? And then you have your own language. But it's important because this observational study that you do as a convert, you may think, oh, I have to dress this way, right? Without realizing why this Muslim is dressing this way in the first place, right? You may not have access, again, to the cloth, to the material, to the whole piece, right? Certain garbs like this might run you $200-$300, right? Depending on where you go, right? And if you don't know someone in the family that sews, or if you can't sew yourself, right, then the cost of that doesn't go down. So I say that because you want to try your best. I don't want you to beat yourself up and don't get to prayer, right? Or don't get to offering your prayer because you feel like Allah's going to say,
look at how your bum self is dressed.
Or, you know what I mean? No. Again, Allah starts with niyat, and that's also one of the requisites. Niyat, intention. That's what niyat means. Where's your heart at? Where's your mind at? Right? Where's your soul at when you're going to offer the prayer? Right? You want to make sure that your intention is there so you can offer it. Because guarantee, even as you're offering the prayer, you're going to have distractions that try to take you off of that. Right? If you ever try to just do something and, like, for instance, a fly comes out of nowhere and it distracts you, right? Because when you're praying, you want to look at one specific spot on the ground, right? To hold your attention, hold your focus, right? And so a fly coming in or like a noise from outside, you want to mitigate any kind of distraction as much as possible, because even that little thing can take you off. A thought of,
oh, what time is it? Do I have to get to work?
Now you in lost track when you was in prayer. You was mid-reading Quran. Right? So it's important to make sure that our intention all around, not just I'm here to make Salat al-Fajr, the morning prayer, or Salat al-Isha, the evening prayer. It's not just I'm saying this and get the attention. No, be intentional in your clothing, right? One of the other requisites is your ablution, your wudu, your ghusl, and if you have to, your tayammum, right? So what are those things? Ablution, first off, that's it's an easy way to say it. It's the purification of your body, in this case through the usage of water, right? So when you use the bathroom, after you're done using the bathroom, you make ablution. You wash your hands, you wash it with soap, right? In this case, there is no soap that's needed for this. We're just using straight water, right? And if you have access to water, then you have to make wudu. If you don't have access to water, like let's say you're in the desert, let's say your water's turned off, you're in the same boat, right? You can't shower, you can't wash, you can't cook, any of that stuff, then you are allowed to use the dust, the earth, right? And there's a specific process that I'll break down in another video in terms of how to make tayammum, how to make ghusl, and I can't show you how to make ghusl specifically, because that's like the bath, that's the shower, right? Purifying yourself that way with water. And then there is the way I can show you, which is wudu, right? And that's where you wash your hands, your mouth, you gargle your mouth, you snort water in, snort it out your nose, wash it on your face, your arms, over your head, right? Making sure you get your hair behind your ears and then wiggle it out, or wash it out rather. And then you wash your feet, right? You do right to left. You start with the right side 3 times, left side 3 times with each one. So right to left that way. I'll break down the video so it don't look like that. So I do apologize. May Allah forgive me. Another essential requisite is that we face the Kaaba in Mecca, the great mosque, or the house of Allah in Mecca. That's the big black stone mosque that you see. We all make the sawuf around our circuits, right? No matter where you are in the world, we face that direction, right? So it's all Muslims around the world praying in the same direction, right? So for us here in the West, that is praying towards the east. Another requisite is that you have to offer your prayer, the proper prayer, at the right time, right? So your morning prayer, you have to offer it within the morning time. The afternoon prayers, you have to offer those in the proper afternoon times. The evening prayers, your Maghrib and your Isha prayers, you have to offer those also at the proper times, right? So you have to give each prayer its proper time, and you want to try to strive to make the prayer on time, right? So in most mosques that I've been to here in North America, they usually have like a prayer schedule for the whole year, right? And for the most part, it is accurate based on the movements of the sun and meteorology and all that, right? To get the accuracy of that. And this is the community prayer schedule, right? So because the hope is that you have everyone praying in unison at the same time, because the power of prayer, right? Especially when you do it within congregation, and anybody who's prayed in a congregation, you know, right? So we have these prayer times where you want to make sure you're doing the prayer at its proper time. And that, yes, is part of a struggle, right? So what I mean by that is you might say, well, I'm gonna get up at 6 o'clock every day to make Fajr, right? And then daylight savings times happen, and then now you lose an hour and you have to get up at 5 now and not 6, right? Are you going to make that compromise for the sake of Allah? This is something that Muslims deal with, and I assure you this is something that, especially us as young Muslims, that we get raised to do the right thing, and we're like,
no, bro, I'm getting my hour in.
And then what happens? You fall asleep and you miss your prayer time, and now you have to, apologize to Allah, but you gotta wait till the next prayer, right, to make that up, right? And Allah had already told you and gave you the signs.
Hey, especially if you could have gotten up.
Right, so there is a striving for that, right? I don't want to make so much too light out of it that we don't see the seriousness of it. You want to be on time when you go in to meet Allah, so to speak, right? You don't want to keep Allah waiting. Okay, after we've met our essential requisites for making sure that we're in a purified state and that we're praying in a purified space, right? We come to the adhan, the call to prayer. And there'll be a link for that down below where you can hear me reciting the adhan, right, in its entirety. But let's read here. What is the adhan? The adhan is the first call to prayer. When and why is the adhan uttered? The adhan is uttered in a loud voice to announce to the faithful that it is time for the obligatory prayer and to invite them to offer the same. How is the adhan recited? The adhan is recited in a loud voice by the muezzin, the crier or the person who calls the adhan. facing the direction of the Kaaba in the following words, which are said in the order mentioned, as here. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. One thing of importance to note, when you make the adhan for the Fajr prayer, your morning prayer in the morning, you want to, after Hayya al-Falah, Hayya al-Falah, you'll be adding As-Salatu khayrun minan naum, As-Salatu khayrun minan naum, meaning sleep, meaning prayer is better than sleep, right? And you're going to say that twice after you say Hayya al-Falah, Hayya al-Falah, right? Then you say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah. After we have called the adhan, right? You call what is called the iqamat, right? What is the iqamat and when is it uttered? The iqamat is the second call to prayer and is uttered immediately before the beginning of the obligatory prayer, right? It is similar to the adhan, but with the addition of the sentence qad qamatis salah, qad qamatis salah. Prayer has indeed begun, prayer has indeed begun. Okay, moving to our next part. What are the obligatory or the fard factors in prayer? The obligatory factors in prayer are 7 in number, right? To say the takbir, tarima, right? So the takbir, Allahu Akbar, and you're going to have make sure your hand is up to where your ears are, right? And this is going to be the initial takbir that starts off your prayer. Secondly is our posture of qiyam, right? Which is standing straight. Now, if you are following Maliki tradition of Sunni Islam, then you pray with your hands to the side after you give your takbir, right? If you are of Shafi, Hanafi, Hanbali, then you pray with your right hand. Put your left hand over your navel and then your right hand over, right? I'll save the reasons for why there is a difference for another video. The purpose of this video is so that there is a general understanding for how prayer is done amongst us as Muslims, right? There is reasons for why there are differences, right? But both are correct is the main point. Whether you pray with your hands to the side or you pray with your hands over your navel, both are correct, all right? Cool. Thirdly, to recite some verses from the Holy Quran. Fourthly, you do the posture of ruku, which is bowing down in such a way as to grasp the knees with the hands, keeping the back in a straight line so as to form a right angle with the legs, right? Fifthly, we have sajda, which is the prostrating in such a way that both the palms of the hands, the forehead, the nasal bone, your nose, the knees and the toes of both which touch the ground. There must be sufficient space between the arms and the chest, and the legs and the belly so that they do not touch each other but remain separate. Sixthly, qa'ada, right, which is sitting down in a reverential posture, keeping the right foot erect on the toes and the left one in a reclining position under the rumps, or under your butt, right? And then last and seventhly, to signify the completion of prayer by the word or action, right? So salaming out. As-Salaamu Alaikum wa rahmatullah. As-Salaamu Alaikum wa rahmatullah. If you're praying behind an imam, when you do this, As-Salaamu Alaikum wa rahmatullah, you offer your salams here. As-Salaamu Alaikum. As-Salaamu Alaikum wa rahmatullah. There you go. Okay, so that's actually where we're going to stop, right? And that was from page 33 to 43. So we just covered 10 pages. You know, that's about this size, so you can get some understanding of the depth of that. But we covered the requisites before you can make the prayer, right? We covered putting yourself in a purified state, right? Also keeping intention at the forefront, right? And be a little bit soft with yourself, right? Like, again, you may not have the access to clothes, or there might be other personal barriers that you can't change, right? And Allah knows this, because you're not praying to for the sake of praise for others, from others, right? You're praying for what you're praying for. You're praying because you have to as a Muslim, and you should want to and strive to, right? If Allah truly is to be the friend that we're told, and that, as you see, that He is. Because ain't none of this possible without Allah. And the closer you get to that belief, the more real and everything and beautiful about this struggle that we live called life becomes. And becomes at least an honest struggle that you can look at, you can see the reflection of yourself in, and not a struggle like we see a lot of folks having that don't wish to see the true reflection of what is, right? And so we always want to strive to be on the path of Allah, on the path towards Allah, right? On the path of truth, on the path of honesty, on the path of humility, having that kind of an intention, right? Because none of us are perfect. None of us are perfect, right? And that was something else too. I wrote down here when it came to a purified state, right? Passing gas, for instance, breaks your purified state, right? So after you make your wudu, your ghusl, or your tayammum, if you pass gas, you've broken out of that state. Now there are some folks that can't change the fact that they pass gas every 5 seconds. It's something that we laugh at within culture.
Like, oh, this person just keeps on farting. Da-da-da.
That's what pass gas means, if you didn't know, right? This person keeps farting. Da-da-da-da. We make fun of it, right? For me back then, especially for us as kids, we had the ability to go downstairs and remake our wudu. There are some who don't have that ability. So then what do you do? Right? And that's what I mean. I'm not asking this in the sense of a question in which I need an answer down in the comments or something like that. No, I'm asking this more so in a rhetorical question, because I do want those to strive, if they are dealing with this and you feel like you can't hold a purified state. It's understanding that even if you were able to make wudu and ghusl and tayammum, you're not 100% pure. Right? You're not 100% pure. A lot of this is coming down to the intention first. And the power can't be felt a lot of times. You ever seen a prayer work that didn't have good intention behind it from Allah? That's not how it works. You got to have good intention behind what it is that you want to do in a positive sense. And then the originator and the thing, the OG of positivity is going to make sure it get to where it got to get to. Right? So I do apologize if it's going overboard. I'm only going overboard because I know how much we can go overboard in ourselves, and then feel like we drowning in ourselves. So I just don't want that, because I care and I love y'all. Right? And I just want us to see more of how sometimes this is the things we need to heal, the things we need to get better, to learn to be better, to grow to be better, right? In this vicious world that don't want you to be better. It wants you to be cold and rip everything apart and all that. And all we just looking for is a little bit of understanding and really just peace, right? And on that note, I will leave y'all with this. Hopefully you can go back to the beginning of this and you know, get more of a understanding of it, make yourself more familiar with it. Any questions, make sure you leave them down in the comments or hit me up in the email, and I'll see y'all in the next part of this video, inshallah. As-Salaamu Alaikum. Peace.